We celebrate today the feast of the evangelist, Saint Luke. Luke was not one of the 12 disciples of Jesus. As a matter of fact, he was a Christian who became a companion of Paul and accompanied Paul on his journeys. Luke heard Paul, heard the disciples Peter and the others, and wrote 2 accounts in the New Testament. As a matter of fact, Luke is the one person who has written more of the New Testament than any other evangelist. Luke has got his own gospel, and he has also written the Acts of the Apostles, where he describes the journey of Peter in the 1st century and the journey of Paul in the second half of the Acts of the Apostles. Luke was influenced so much by Jesus that there are some special qualities about his gospel. His gospel is primarily a gospel of the poor, because in his reflection he realized that if Jesus had come for one particular group, it was primarily for the poor. Jesus obviously would not exclude others, but his focus would be the poor, and that is why in the Beatitudes, unlike in the Gospel of Matthew, where Jesus pronounces this beatitude on the poor in spirit, Luke will pronounce the beatitude on simply the poor, the economically poor, the physically poor, the downtrodden, those who were closest to Luke's heart. Luke is also the gospel which shows Jesus as a man of deep prayer. At different moments in his life, and especially at the important moments in his life before his baptism, before his transfiguration, before his choice of the disciples, before he had to go to Jerusalem, Luke shows Jesus as praying of being in communion with the Father. In the gospel text of today, Luke is the only one who has this particular mission discourse, which is the mission to the 72. And the reason why Luke included this mission discourse, because he realized that he was not part of the 12, and yet he also had a mission from the Lord, just like the 72. The 72 is a figurative figure which stands not only for 72, but for anyone who wishes to walk the way of Jesus. And for those of us who wish to follow the way of Jesus, which is the way of love, the way of giving, the way of sacrifice, Luke stands as a beacon of hope. He is inviting us to hear the instructions of Jesus as he sends us out on mission. And what instructions does Jesus give his disciples when he sends them out? He says, the only communication that you must do is a communication of love. The only words that you must speak are words that enhance and build up. The only actions that you must perform are actions that heal and raise. Today, on this feast of Saint Luke, we need to realize that like him, we were not part of the 12, and yet we are called to be disciples, and yet we, like him and the 72, are sent on mission. When we speak that enhancing word, when we perform that loving action, we are making Jesus present like Luke did. Luke wrote a gospel and the Acts of the Apostles to make known Jesus. What will you do today to make Jesus known?